Jillian Benfield. Welcome to Take the Next Step. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am really glad you're here today because you're here both as an author and as a mother. And this podcast is particularly designed for parents. So I wanted to start just by asking you to give us a picture of your family with all of the challenges you face and all of the goodness you experience.
So we are a family of five. My husband, gosh, prior military, we've moved all over the country, and we have finally settled on Florida's Space Coast. And my husband is an orthodontist here. We have three children. The oldest is 12. That's our daughter, Violet. Our middle son, Anderson, has Down syndrome. And our youngest, Preston, is in second grade. Preston was born with a whole host of issues as well. So that's kind of what inspired this book was that time frame specifically. It was having a very medically complex infant as well as a toddler who has a disability and associated medical illnesses that come with that disability at the time, plus behaviors that can also come with that disability. And so it was just that is kind of our origin story. We're not exactly there now. Our youngest is you would never know that he had
Mm,
all these medical issues other than the scars that he still wears from them. However, there was a period of time where it was pretty dicey. And honestly, it was pretty awful at
yeah.
points too. And that's when I came across this article between the two boys. They had 18 specialists between them. And I came across this article after going to two different doctor appointments that day, one for each. And it was this woman who was grieving the loss of her infant daughter
Mm,
and who also had just had the birth of her nephew happen.
mm,
And her therapist asked how she was doing with that. And she said, well, I'm really glad he was born healthy, but I'm still really sad about my loss.
yeah.
And her therapist corrected her and said, and you're still really sad about your loss. And that she said, you don't have to choose. You don't have to choose between these emotions. They can both exist.
Mm,
And that just really changed things for me.
mm.
It was this small little Facebook post that really started, it was just such an awakening for me that I didn't have to choose. I could be really grateful that my youngest son health issues were not as bad off as the doctors led me to believe they could be
Mhm.
when I was pregnant with him. Um, and I could also admit that this was incredibly hard because it was. And that's what kind of shapes my perspective and then shapes this book, which is called Overwhelmed and Grateful. And it's the concept of being real about our hard things. And I think this particularly relates to parents of kids with disabilities because we do have extra challenges that come with raising kids, disabled kids in a non accessible world. And keeping our eyes open to the beauty that is within our experiences as well.
Well, will you speak a little bit to that, just the experience? We've heard already some of the challenges that you've faced as a family. Will you speak a little bit, because you do this a lot in your writing, but to the beauty as well, so that we get a picture of that aspect of your family life?
Sure. I mean, gosh, my first book was called The Gift of the Unexpected, and it's about how the unexpected has the opportunity to transform us into who we're meant to be.
Hmm.
And I really do believe that having my son with Down syndrome honestly killed off some of the worst parts of me,
Hmm.
and parts of me that needed to die, and really taught me how to live. He helped me deconstruct so many bad ideas I had
Mm,
um, about faith, about worth, about what success is and what that should look like, and help me build better ones. And
mhm,
so we have these challenges raising a child with a disability, and it is my greatest challenge and my greatest gift. Both of those things are true to
mhm,
me, because we wouldn't be who we are as a family unit without Anderson, without this experience of disability. I see how it has shaped my children and how it has shaped us, and how we choose to live in the world.
Thank you. And yeah, just to repeat, your book is called Overwhelmed and Grateful. And I suspect that there are many listeners who, just hearing the title, are saying, yes, yes, I got it. And each chapter is a different kind of pairing of some emotion or experience with gratitude. And there was one that I wanted to hone in on for this audience, and it was called Busy and Grateful. And I just want to read one portion from that chapter. You wrote, I didn't realize that all of my yeses meant I was saying no to much. I was saying no to rest. I was saying no to being present with my kids when we finally had downtime in the day. I was saying no to being quiet enough to discern where my heart was leading me. So when I read those words, I just resonated as a parent, and certainly as a parent of a child with a disability myself, because we just so often find ourselves swimming in paperwork and email responses and all the things to do all day long. So I wanted to ask you to just give some like thoughts on how you learned like to start saying no and what it meant to say yes to the things that you really wanted.
Yeah, so what really made me realize that was an old sermon. We were hosting a Bible study at our house with people who all had kids, like very young kids, like we all had the same phase of life. And we were listening to a sermon series by Andy Stanley, and it was from the 90s. I mean, it was like cheesy skits before the sermon. I don't even know how he found it. But anyways, in the last part of his series about discerning the will of God, he talked about he showed a puzzle box picture, and how this is how we have to think about our lives, and thinking about our lives like 5 and 10 years out. What do we want the picture atop this puzzle box to look like?
Mm,
And our yeses and our nos should be discerned through that lens. Like if it doesn't go into this puzzle box, then it shouldn't, we should be saying no to those things. That's how I interpreted the sermon. It was a very long time ago when I watched it now.
yeah.
Um, but it really did start a fire in me where I realized like I was doing part-time PR work. I was a board member of a Down syndrome association, and doing other things too, volunteering at the school. And I realized that I had to realize first what the vision for my life was 10 years out. And then once I got really clear on that, I had to start eliminating. And that was hard because I knew I was disappointing people. It was hard to step off of that board for the Down Syndrome Association, but I
Yeah.
realized like I could not put the hours in that they needed out of me, um, to and to also build what I needed to build in order to write books. And so it, anyways, my point is to have a vision of what you want for your life, your individual life, and also your family's life. And if it does not fit into that vision, those are the things that we should be saying no to. Now, I'm going to say there is a whole lot more that comes when your kids get older,
Mm,
I think, and opportunities that come. And it becomes, I think, even harder to say no as our kids get older.
mm,
And I want to empathize with people on that point, especially as kids. We have kids with disabilities who have all these specialists and appointments and things like that. Um, However, I think just keeping that vision of, does this fit into my life? And if you can say, if the answer is no, and it's something you can say no to, go ahead and say no. And if the answer is yes, and it's something you can say yes to, then try to say yes.
So will you tell us a little bit about even the work of I think for so many people there's no vision. Like and I can include myself in this, sometimes get so caught up in the busyness that that big picture is really hard to discern, especially when our days are so full, as you said, of appointments and therapies and, paperwork and whatever. Was there anything that you were able to do that allowed you to say, hold on, wait a second, like, where am I headed 10 years down the road? What do I want that puzzle picture to actually end up looking like? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, honestly, it was a sit down conversation with my husband on our front porch with a
Hmm.
paper and pen.
Okay.
And yeah, really, I mean, it wasn't anything formal, but it was just like hearing how he envisioned our family looking 10 years out and how he envisioned his career looking 10 years out. And me doing the same
Yeah.
and realizing, like, for us, we wanted kids that would want to come back and visit us in 20 years. And what does that look like, building those relationships
Mm,
with them and with each other within our own household now? And so, like, family dinner, 4 nights a week is something like, okay, like that's something that's a yes for us, and we're going to make that happen.
mm,
So just trying to see,
yeah.
like, especially as you move on in life and people want you to volunteer your time. And I think volunteering is great, and I get so much out of volunteering. And also that has to shift depending on where my life is year
Yeah.
to year, you know? Go
I
ahead.
I listened to a podcast maybe last year. It was James Clear and Peter Attia, so some of these like big guy, habit
Hmm.
people. But they said something that really has stuck with me in thinking about these types of things. One of them, I don't even remember which one, said, you need to know A, B, and Z. And so what they would mean by that is like you need to know where you are right now. Like, in
Hmm.
your case, as you described it, like A was I am overwhelmed, I'm too busy, there's too much going on. Z was that conversation with your husband in terms of like 10 years from now, what do I want this to look like? And sometimes we think we need to know everything in between, like B through Y, like if I'm like getting my alphabet correct there. And
Hmm.
what they were saying is actually, no, you need to know A and Z and B, like
Yeah.
just the next
The next
step you
step.
want to take towards that good future.
Hmm.
That was really freeing to me when I was feeling overwhelmed, especially actually sometimes with things that come up with Penny. I get overwhelmed at the prospect, like when she was turning 18 and I was trying to navigate Social Security and whether we should become guardians and what's a transition program look like and all of these questions. And what I started to do was just to be like, okay, like literally, what is the one next step that I can take that is really small, actually? And so I'm listening to
Hmm.
you just being like sitting on the porch with my husband with paper and pen. Like that was the next step, even towards understanding what that vision might be. And then it sounds like you all did some work to be like, okay, the next step is on Wednesdays we eat dinner together or whatever night it was, And so trying to kind of break that down, at least for me, often makes these become less these kind of, I don't know, sometimes the vision for my life adds to the overwhelm. But what you're saying is that there are ways in which that can actually help us to discern how
Hmm.
to like simplify and make the choices that we really want to make, and just, yeah, move forward towards something that is good for us and for others.
Yeah. And I think that vision doesn't have to be super detailed. Like, it doesn't have to be, I want to sell this many books. It can just be, I want to become a published author. Like,
Hmm.
and break that down for whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's my example. But I don't think it has to be super specific, but just listing out those couple of things that really mean the most to you. There were probably five for us, when listing out our most important things for the next 10 years. Um, that helped us. It really just gave me that filter, that yes and no filter. And I started eliminating stuff pretty quickly. And then, oh no, the next step was like, okay, then I guess I actually have to write this book now. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's like you're right. It is looking A to Z. And then what's the next step? The next step was starting to say no. And then the
Hmm.
next step was, oh gosh, I have to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So it's just taking it, you're right, A to Z and steps in between. That's so good.
Yeah, that helped me a lot. I also love what you're saying because you are both acknowledging the limits that are on your life and your family's life while also believing that there are like good possibilities. And so I
Mm,
think sometimes we get either we are so insisting on the possibilities that we deny our limits, or we are so aware of our limits that we think there are no possibilities. But what I'm hearing you say is like there's actually a process that helps you say, as you said, I mean, you could probably list 20 things that you would love to be true in 10 years that would include serving on a board that helps people with Down syndrome. Like, why would you not want to do that? And yet, when you're like, but probably five is our max, like, we can't actually do all 20. And so, there's just, again, that acknowledgement of both limitations and possibilities that I think is very human and really, really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying is too kind of goes to the message of this book. It's living in that, and it's acknowledging the challenges, and delighting in what could be possible. Both of those
Mm,
things are true. And I think that's important when we live our daily lives, but also when we look to the future.
mm. You also, in this chapter about being busy and grateful, write about the difference between routine and habit. And I found that very helpful. So I wondered if you could just explain what that difference is and why it matters, especially as we perhaps are looking to make changes.
Yeah, so a habit is something that our brain really likes. I think that like almost half of our daily actions are habits. I think that's right. Something it's a very high number of our daily actions are actually habits that we have instilled, but habits are our brain's easy button. It's something that we have done so often, like getting in the car and then you automatically put on your seatbelt. That's a habit. But in order to create a habit, you have to do something routinely. So
Mm,
habits are comfortable, routine is uncomfortable. So you have to be uncomfortable and saying, I'm going to do X every day as part of my routine in order for it to become habit. An example of this for me is I realized probably during that time where I had the sick infant and Anderson, and who was also pretty sickly at the time, I realized that I was a much happier person and a better mother when I exercised. And I had always been an inconsistent exerciser.
mm,
And so it was realizing, like, nope, like Monday through Friday, I have to spend 30 minutes moving my body before I really get into the meat of my day.
yeah.
And so it's like doing that uncomfortable thing. And now I have to say, like, I don't even dread working out because it's become habit. I did it so routinely that
Right.
now it's like, nope, this is just, we wake up, we have a cup of coffee, we work out, then we get the kids. Like, that's just how that goes. And trust me, I am not trying to push exercise on it. I think there is too much of that in this culture. That's just something that works for me.
Yeah.
But that's the difference between habit and routines. You have to be uncomfortable and adding it to your routine in order for it to become more comfortable when it becomes a habit.
I really appreciate that. And there are so many things like that. And sometimes the habits that I'm the most comfortable with are ones that actually need to change. And that
Good
involves a lot
point.
of discomfort too.
Yes.
Um, and I think going back to what we were saying before, at least in my own life, I can pay attention to maybe routine, one uncomfortable routine at a time. So there might be like seven different things that I think, oh gosh, I would like that to become a habit. And it's not like they can't all, but I'm going to probably be working on one at a time. And for me, things like I also needed exercise and was not getting it. And there were little kind of life hacks like putting my clothes in that I was going to wear to exercise in the morning in the bathroom, where it was like, okay, I'm going to see them and put them on without thinking about it. Like the night before, I was very motivated to
Mm-hmm.
exercise. The morning
Mm-hmm.
of, not as much. But if the night before I had put the clothes there, it actually helped be like, okay, I'm going to put them on. I'm not going to take them
Yep.
off until something has happened that involves moving
Yes.
my body. So,
Yeah. It's like a trigger for your brain.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
totally. Um, well, I'm thinking about parents who are listening to this conversation and who are feeling both overwhelmed and grateful right now. And I'm wondering if you want to just leave us with one change or thought or step they might take that helps to both reduce busyness and take the next step towards a good future. And I know you've already said so many. So if you want to just even return to anything as a summary of our conversation, that's fine.
I think for this audience, for our people, the people
Mm,
who are parenting or caregiving for someone with a disability, I would say really I think that this and lens has changed so much for me because what I say about raising someone with a disability is that it's more paperwork, it's more advocacy, it's more effort. And I feel very comfortable in saying that because I also have two typically developing children. When I have people be like, well, all parenting's like that. Well, yes,
no.
and it's more. It just comes with more.
Yeah.
And so I think that acknowledging that, what you said earlier, those limits, those challenges that are present in our lives, and also knowing that somehow, some way, goodness is always present. For me, I think that's because God is always present. and finding ways to hold both of those throughout the day. For me, that is before I sit down to work in the morning. Before I open my laptop, I pray over my more and my and honestly, often that has to do with raising my son with a disability, that more part, those challenges. And we have a lot of those right now. And so it's admitting to God, to myself, those things that are weighing on me, that are worrying me. And it is intentionally looking for what is beautiful in my life right now,
Mhm.
even if it is opening my eyes and looking out the view out of my back door window, and that's what I have to hold on to. That's a great thing to hold on to. But it's like practicing that more, admitting you're more on it, being honest and being grateful. It's honest gratitude is what I call it, and I think that that is something to help us move forward. And then just one more thing, because I knew we were going to talk about this question. I think that when if you have younger parents listening, I think when you get thrust into the disability world, you feel like you have to do it all. You know, you have
Mhm.
to do every single therapy
Yes.
and all of
Yes.
these things. And um, it's okay to not say yes to all of those things for our
Mhm.
children. It's okay to do the thing that maybe say yes to one thing, one therapy, um, because honestly, they probably need a break. You probably need a break, and it's okay to think about your child as a whole person and not just their disability, and your family as a whole family unit too. So
I so appreciate those words. And yes, that's still true. But oh my gosh, I wish I had had that wisdom when Penny was 3 years old and I had a whiteboard in my kitchen with the 72 things I was supposed to be doing
yes,
daily. And I felt so overwhelmed. Yes, that is one word I would give to a younger mom too is like, just pick one thing and work on that and
hmm
and otherwise, and even within that, enjoy your child and your time together. Jillian, thank you so much just for the work that you do. We will certainly make sure in the show notes to link to that. I am a subscriber to your newsletter and I receive just some both fun and thoughtful wisdom from you on a regular basis. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the books that you've written. We will also just link to this new book, Overwhelmed and Grateful. And thank you for all that you've shared here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking to you, and I love, I feel most connected to this community who is walking a similar path. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you having me on.
Hmm. Well, the thanks is mutual. All right. Thanks everyone for being here.